You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Lauren Brissey, Big Sis. What's up, Lauren?
Nothing much. It's
has
been a long time.
It's been a very long time. It's been a minute. So, first question I have for you, I asked this kind of to your mom too. What's it like seeing me now from when you last saw me? Because you probably saw me when I was 5 years old.
It's funny. My biggest memory of you, I have this video of you and my brother Matt. And you guys were doing like a funny skit on like Dr. Phil. And I remember one of you being like pushed across the chair in a rolling chair.
Justin,
it is still on my YouTube. Like I have it on my YouTube channel. That I have nothing on there except a couple random songs of me singing a cappella forever ago. But yes, that is my just this goofy kid. Like you always have been. You've always had a personality.
So, what I want to talk to you about is what do you do professionally?
That is a loaded question.
It is a loaded question.
So, I'm office manager of Acadia Counseling and Wellness, which is kind of different because most counseling places, it's just a counselor's office. They don't have anything else, but we're trying to kind of hit all facets of wellness. So we have yoga. On top of an adult yoga class, we have a kids mindfulness class for kids 12 to 17 with ADHD who just need some help focusing and kind of grounding themselves.
And a prime candidate right here.
Right. So, and you never really hear about, alternative methods. Sure, I mean, everyone's always saying, Ritalin medication can help, and for some kids it does, but some kids just kind of need something different where they can be in a group of kids and be like, oh, they're just like me, I'm not weird, I'm not strange. They can kind of have like a support group of sorts. And on top of that, we have massage therapy, which is huge. It's nice to be able to come to one place. For one thing, like my counseling clients, they can get a discounted massage or a free yoga class once a month. So we can kind of work on all facets of wellness versus just one thing.
So not just curing the emotional stress people have, but sometimes what it feels like the spiritual stress or the physical stress.
Right, and a lot of mental illnesses are psychosomatic. You get depressed, you get body aches, you wake up in the morning and it's raining outside and you don't understand why you're feeling so groggy and
like
just
someone
like
put a blanket
droopy
over your head.
Exactly, or like you're looking at the world through like a veil. Like there's something that's holding you back. A little while ago, I did a creative writing piece on comparing depression and anxiety to like this hoodie. Like you've worn it your whole life and it feels so comfortable, and despite the fact that it's telling you you can't do this, you're not strong enough, you're not a good mother, you don't do enough, even though it's comfortable and you want to stay there, if you take it off, like there's so much weight in that. Like you don't realize that you're carrying 50 pounds in the pockets of that hoodie.
Yeah.
Like how much it holds you down. So I tear up a little bit because I'm so inspired by single parents and a lot of people that go through stuff, but no one ever talks about it because it's a taboo. When it comes to mental health, you call someone and you tell your friend that you're depressed, they're like, oh, you're acting so negative. You just need to get out of it. And that's the complete opposite reaction that we need to have.
The whole entire, basically reason for trying to even talk to someone that's having depression issues or emotional issues, especially with someone that's not dealing with it and doesn't know what that's like, it is hard because I've had friends tell me, like I suffer from a little bit of depression too. I think everybody has a certain type of strain on them throughout life. And it's telling somebody to get out of it. It might seem like a logical thing to you, but it's not to them. Like they feel like they're trapped in a hole, and like every step they try and take or rope they try and grab to climb out of it just breaks on them, and then they fall right back in. And it's like you'll have your days where you're happy and you feel good about yourself, but it's really hard to find what I call like positivity or just natural things in this world that we can take the time to enjoy. Like for me, I feel like someone took the sunglasses off my eyes. I started getting really into podcasting. I fell into a routine for such a long time where I was just so content with everything I was like doing, like just going to work, going to school, going to the gym, going work, going to school, going to gym. I lost all contact with friends. I just kind of isolated myself, which I was doing towards the end of my high school years. So it felt like I stayed in a comfort zone for too long, and then eventually, like, I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's not fun anymore. Like, this is not a life to live, being on autopilot all the time and not
Right.
enjoying the true aspects of life. And seeing and hearing all my friends, like, either that have been dying or something like that, has really impacted, like, either because of drugs or because of car accidents or because of something. It's like, I don't want that to be me. Like, my dream was always to leave a scratch on the surface of the earth where either someone that I know personally, like very close to me, or someone that I've never even heard of before is going to be able to hear it and then get something from it. That's the main reason why I started a podcast. Everyone has an interesting story, whether you think you're interesting or not. It's the same response you gave to me when I asked you to be on my podcast. You're
Right.
like, why me? And I'm like, it's a conversation between me and you. Like, we don't have to worry about the recorder that's there. Obviously, it's on the table. It's listening to us. But I'm not out there to impress anybody. I'm out there to hear your interests, your passions, what you're like, how you think about the world. Because the way I think is completely different.
I completely agree with you. You know, we walk by so many people every day, and, you know, we rarely turn to our elders and talk to them about, you know, what their life experiences have been. And now my family is like old royalty of Berlin. My great-great-grandfather was the mayor in the 1960s, Hugh T. Cropper. He was best friends with Roland Fish Powell. You know, they named the inlet parking lot after him. And what I like to do is, you know, I'll go and visit my grandmother, who, she's up there. She's close to 80. She's got COPD, has to have an oxygen tank.
I know what that's
And
like.
a lot of times when someone close to you is going through something medical, you kind of distance yourself without realizing it. But, you know, what we need to do is, you know, they don't have friends stopping by on them. You know, they're checking the obituaries every day to see, you know, who else do I know that's not here anymore, you know, and yeah, if they call you, you might be stuck on that phone for an hour and a half, because that's just how grandparents are, and they want to know what you're doing and they want to know what's going on. But, you know, taking 10 minutes to stop by and sit with them and just be like, you know, what's your favorite, the best thing that you've ever experienced? What was the biggest change, you know, throughout your lifetime? Yeah, we grew up with, well, I don't know about you, but my first computer was an MS-DOS. You know, there wasn't a graphical user interface. You know, the icons that you see on an iPhone, the buttons that you click on to get to the internet. It was all just words that you typed in, and you just had to figure it out. And they've experienced that. They went from no television to black and white television to a color television. God forbid I try to talk to her about a Nintendo Switch, because the idea of something touchscreen is just alien.
The guy who invented the color television that actually popularized it first was actually a Latino person.
I did not. But I think it's beautiful that, you know, in technology and all the advancements that our society is making, there is such a ridiculous amount of diversity. You know, I'm constantly reading about, you know, up and coming startups that have such innovative ideas to really bring us together as a community with technology. Like, that's the biggest part, creating an app to help this environment that we're destroying, so people can, you know, band together and work on recycling, and, you know, try to make sure that our kids are going to be able to have the same experiences that we have.
You're very pro technology, aren't you?
I am
I am a little bit standoffish against it when it comes to certain things. I do believe it's beautiful. First of all, it's beautiful and very destructive, but I think
Right.
it's all in the way that we take it. I believe that humans have the ability where we love, and it's so beautiful and so inspirational to see what we can create and what we can do with our minds.
Mm-hmm.
This item that we barely understand ourselves. It's much like the ocean, where we say we've only discovered part of it. Like,
Right.
there's still so
Small
much left.
percentage.
That's just like our brains. That's just like space. It's always going to be like that. I believe we're never going to unlock our full potential. But the whole aspect of our curiosity and our efforts to kind of want to push the barrier further, it has always been a downfall, and it has always been a succeeding factor in our just time period.
Mm-hmm.
There's reasons why our government and like our certain things prosper in a certain way, even though they use whatever methods they use to get there, whether they're good or bad,
Right.
mostly dark. But it's the whole aspect of like, we're constantly looking to expand, and in a world like this, you have to move forward, or you're going to get left behind, and you
Right.
can't, like, where I say I want to go off into an Amish lifestyle, which I eventually do want to do one day, where I'm kind of, I like the base factor of things. That's a giant influence from you, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. You got me into the old medieval type games and that
Right.
whole type of history where I kind of was so, I guess, so like much like a sponge as a child, where I was like, I was looking for something to pick up an interest, and then you showed me like World of Warcraft and Skyrim, and or not Skyrim, Oblivion, and then like
Yes.
getting hardcore into those medieval games, and like just that was my whole life back in the day, was video games. So constantly learning from them, like it's where I got fascinated in looking up like herbalism and making like potions, not actually doing it, but like the whole art behind it. Like that's something in art history.
You should look into alchemy.
Alchemy, yeah.
Because it is amazing. There's actually this really good series. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. The first book's called A Discovery of Witches, and the main character, she's a witch, but she like threw away all her heritage. She doesn't want anything to do with magic, and she's a professor of alchemy. And it's an amazing story about how, you know, she was trying to deny who she was, and ultimately she found out she was using magic the whole time, even though she wasn't meaning to. But it really piqued an interest in alchemy for me. And there are a lot of historical manuscripts that you can find online, a lot of things that you can read that definitely have a correlation to a lot of advances that we've made in science. You know, back in the medieval times, science was magic. You know, it was an explanation for something you didn't understand otherwise. You know, being able to.
It's funny because
just
science,
just a lot.
Science was magic, and then medical was science.
Right.
Because like they were just learning back then. Like I learned about Robert, what's his name? Robert Layton. I think I got that last name wrong. But he was the one that he was known as the fastest knife in the West End. I was telling your mom about this. Like he has a 300% mortality rate in a surgery, and you know how that's possible? He killed 3 people in one surgery. He killed the person he was working on. He amputated their leg, because back then, being the fastest knife was the best thing you could possibly be.
Right.
So his name's Lister, Robert Lister. Okay, so Liston, I think, yeah. I want to make sure I get that correct, because he's very fascinating, and I just learned about him too. So. Not to go off like I did with your mom about Robert Liston, but like he chopped off a woman's leg, and then she died later, and then chopped off in the process his assistant's fingers, and then also he died because they didn't have, like, you know, basically if you get something cut off or something cut, you're dead.
Right,
And,
that's it.
And then he was moving so fast that he sliced a person's lab coat, and that person had a heart attack and died. So he's the only one with a confirmed 300% mortality rate killing. But he was like the surgeon everyone wanted. And the weird thing about it is that surgery and like all the medical practices back then were, I mean, it's real history, but that was our entertainment back in the day.
Right.
All the surgeons' rooms were lined up like theaters. People would stand and watch this because they didn't have movies back then. They didn't have all this technology that we have now. That was their form of entertainment. You know, you get to see the fastest knife in the West End. And it's just ridiculous to think that. And he was the one that actually popularized the research into washing your hands and doing all this type of stuff. There's another doctor that's quoted for implementing that, but he didn't know why he was doing it. He just thought, like, he didn't want it on him.
Right.
Well, back in the day, you wore your blood on your lab coat as a sign of, like, achievement. And, you know, barbers before were the original surgeons. They would be like, they had signs that would say haircut 25 cents, teeth pull $1, bullet taken out $5. Like, it was stuff like that. And that's what came with the whole, the red, white, and like the pole outside the barber shop.
Yeah.
They would take bloody rags and they would slap them against the thing, and it would create a red blood stripe along the pole.
I guess that's where the idea of Sweeney Todd came from.
Yeah. Well, instead of baking people in pies and stuff. But have you seen that movie on Netflix?
Sweeney Todd?
Yeah.
The musical, yeah.
I watched it 15 minutes in. I'm tired of them singing. It's like Les Miserables or whatever it's called.
Oh, don't do that. Les Miserables.
You're nuts.
Well, aside from gaming
Wolverine
and technology.
doesn't dance.
Oh my goodness. Music has always been such a passion of mine, and I love musicals. I mean, I have the whole score to Phantom of the Opera, the Jekyll and Hyde Broadway, Once Upon a Mattress, which is a comical musical about the Princess and the Pea, an old school nursery rhyme kind of. But yeah, I love music and I love musicals, but they're not for everyone. For some people have difficulty. I don't know what it is. I know okay, so I don't know if you know this, but only 10 to 12% of people have a physical goosebump reaction to music. I am one of them. My mother is not. And that surprised me. Like, I almost didn't believe this statistic until I asked her. And I was like, when you're listening to something and it's really good and, like, raises the hair on your arms, you can see the goosebumps, like, because you feel it. You feel, like, whatever emotion that artist is trying to portray. I had no idea. Not everyone got to experience it. And honestly, when I found that out, it made me sad. Like, it made me sad that other people may not be able to feel to the extent like what I feel.
Whole feel of music, yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what inspires me about, like, everyone asks me what's your favorite type of music. I don't have a favorite type of music. The reason why is because I look at music in a creative form. I believe that if it's someone inspiring with their mind or creativity, whether it's even a parody of a song or an original. When it comes to an original, that's someone that created something out of their mind and put it into a form that is in base with their feelings and emotions. When I hear a song, no matter if it's hardcore, there's obviously certain genres I'm going to like a lot better, but none of it's bad to me. When I hear a musical, I can handle it and I will listen to it. I'm not going to it's not like I'm forcing myself. It's just the whole fact of I don't find that entertainment to be very like if there was a comedy special on Netflix, I'd probably rather watch that.
Right.
But the whole aspect of someone creating something with their mind and then having the ability to even put it into a form is just beautiful in my mind. And that's when I really started feeling I was opened up into the world. Like, I want to visit an opera. I want to visit a symphony. I want to see this stuff because I'm in a music appreciation class right now, and we watched a symphony on YouTube in the middle of class, and he's like, everyone's like, gets the question, what did you see in the video? What was the violinist doing? And then like everyone was like, well, he was playing this certain, and then named the type of musical form, and then I gave the dumb response. I'm just like, did you see the guy that was playing the trumpet? He was going so hard, like he looked like he was gonna pass out. And I was like, it was fun to watch. And like, what? Right. And I'm like, and let me tell you about the violinist. She was so hot, I couldn't keep my eyes off her. She was way too hot to be a violinist. And I said this to your mom. I said, they have, like, you know how people look like their dogs? There's a certain type of people that fit their instruments. It seems like their instrument, and she chalked it up to when you have like when a baby's born and they're given a name, their face changes to the way they're named. Like, I wouldn't be able to be named Kevin, she was saying. I was like, that doesn't make sense. What happens if someone changes their name later and then their face is just like frozen or stuck? But it's like, she's right. Like, it was weird watching, like, the violinists were mostly girls, and then there was a couple guys that had feminine characteristics, or they were really older and really skinny.
Right.
And it was like they all fit the instruments. And then I just cracked the joke in class like I usually do. And I'm like, where's the guy playing the triangle? That's my real homie. As like a joke. Next thing you know, like a minute in, a dude's playing the triangle. I'm like, there he is! There he is! Like, he's going hard. And they gave him a solo too. Like a little ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, and everyone's all quiet. And I'm like, this is something I would love to go enjoy. And then I started getting into, like, when I go to thrift stores, I started doing that a couple of years ago, and like, because stuff's cheap.
Right?
Yeah, like they had the little, what are they, Mexican blankets? Nobody knows where they get them from, but they just have them in their house. I have one in my car. I'm like, I don't understand.
I have one. It came from the boardwalk in Ocean City when I was like a teenager. I don't know how I still have it.
I was at your house the other day, your old house, and she had one right on the couch, your mom did. And I was like, where do you guys get these? Because no one
Where
knows.
do they come from?
And me and my buddy looked them up, and it's like $10 on Amazon. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure they just magically appear. Like,
right?
I have no clue. But it's like those simple things. I look at a fabric like that, see the stitching. You got to think about the time, whether it was a bunch of people working in a sweatshop somewhere, or whether it was some person that sat down and took the time to, the stories it tells.
Are you aware that I crochet? The only reason I say that is because, like, I make these really big, like, the one I made for my son was probably almost a queen size. I also made one for my grandmother that I gave her, and it's literally, you have one hook, it's not knitting, so you only have one, and it just takes an extraordinary, at the end of my son's, it probably took me a day to do, like, one side. Like, it takes so long. I wish, I'll have to try to find pictures so I can show you.
What's crocheting exactly?
So that is, and then I've never had to explain it without showing. So you have a metal hook. It's like the long handle of the metal, and then a tiny hook on the end, just round enough to grab one piece of string, basically. And then
Oh, and you
there's
do like knit one, knit two, but it's like overlapping. I think I've seen videos of it before.
well, they're the stitches for crochet. Your basic stitch is called a chain stitch, where you'll do like a slip knot to attach your string to your yarn. You'll wrap your lead yarn, which is the long string that you have coming out of your ball. You'll wrap it around the hook once, bring it down through the hoop you already have on your hook, and that's one chain stitch. And then you have stitches that you build on top of that. Some are really tall, some are really short. You have like puff stitches that are like fancy. They're shell stitches that look like a seashell. And for my sons, I use this really soft, I call it baby yarn. It's ridiculously soft, and literally, like, that is his security blanket. Like, if he's tired, he will go get his blanket and drag it through the house and climb up with you. Like, I don't know if he would ever slept through the night if I had not made him that blanket. I don't.
See, like when you say crochet, my initial thought was the thing where you see the fancy people hitting that ball under the little silver metal gate thing.
Croquet.
Okay, so I was close.
It's a sport.
It's a sport, yeah. It's for rich people.
I used to play that in my backyard growing up with Matt and Sarah. Yeah.
Cro-
We had a croquet set.
I was close.
Mm-hmm.
Crochet and then croquet.
Mm-hmm. Croquet has a Q, crochet is a CH.
Well, pay me for my spelling.
Now you just got the fancy talking.
The fancy, right? Who would have thought I would have found something with my mouth to do? Like, I became so introvert that sounded so wrong. Oh my goodness. But no, like, just being able, like, to have the ability to talk and then find, like, a passion with talking. I didn't even see that at the time. And now you think about how much I talk, and, like, I just became so introvert for a while, where it was difficult I felt like just there's not really a point in speaking. And then what I used to do at thrift stores, I used to buy dictionaries and just read them. Like a word a day, and I had word of the day toilet paper, but I found like I was going through 1,000 words a day. So yeah, and but like it's like what my English teacher in 7th grade did to me as a punishment, but it was to help me learn. I see in the process in recess, she would make me stay inside, and she would put a dictionary in front of me and write down the words from this side onto there, and do like 10 words and the definitions, and then we'll do that, and then you can go outside and play when you get done.
Right.
And then my dad at night, like when I was having trouble with grammar and like doing the little spelling, you're writing it out and trying to put the word into a sentence of your own, he would grab a dictionary, grab a bunch of pieces of paper, sit it down, say write the definition, and keep going and going, like write your vocabulary words out and do it that way.
Your teacher might have gotten it from your dad then.
And it was, yeah, my dad had the secrets. But it was like, after a while, I started getting fascinated with trying to use more difficult vocabulary in my speaking. Like, instead of using the basic necessities, like, it feels like now we try and save so much time in this world, we cut down our words.
It's true.
And it's like, we need to not try and speed up things, even though we might have stuff we have to get to, obviously, but take the time to slow down. And with someone with ADHD like me, that's a big revelation. Because you're constantly moving at what seems like to be 1,000 miles an hour. Like, my mind is, while I'm talking to you and having a very, like, intimate conversation, like, where I'm in the present moment, my mind's still rambling about 50 other things I'm going to be doing outside of here. And I feel like with a lot of people, it's like that, whether you have ADHD or not. But it just feels like I'm on a treadmill moving 500 times faster when I have the ADHD. And it's really hard to take the time to focus and have the concentration. Like, I interviewed a spiritualist, and she was telling me, like, she believes in spirit animals, and hers is the wolf. She's a mother, and it's like guiding and stuff. I believe mine's the sloth, because I would like to slow down, and then when I try and find the second to kind of, and then take a little deep breath and just enjoy life, let the air fill up your lungs. One of my favorite poems by Robert Hayden Frost, I always talk about it, Those Winter Sundays. Like, that's a beautiful poem. It makes me, like, flash back to a time period of nice and cold. Like, I've always been jealous of you for your fascination with books and being able to sit down and read. I can't. I'm very good at reading. I have a very, very high reading level, and I've always been able to understand, like, words and stuff, but I find it very tasking for me to sit down and get my mind to focus. with just the amount of energy I have. And so when I talk to people, it's like, you're my form of book. You're the story of Lauren Brissey, and I would like to hear it. And everyone's got a story to tell. It's a main reason why I had this idea of going to a retirement home and then getting permission, obviously, to interview some of these people, because they're living textbooks.
Right.
They have been around in a history I have not experienced. Even though it's in my history, it's something I was not around the time to consume and take in full grasp of. Like my grandfather being raised in the Great Depression, he taught me how to eat chicken, where you basically, if you eat the bone, it's just protein. Like, it's a fascination. And then just thinking about that and the way he said that, I was like, wow, like, well, I wonder how many people actually eat bones of animals. It's a giant thing in culture. They use stuff to cook with in China and like Taiwan and everything, that they cook with bones and we use bone broth.
Well, yeah, even in the U.S., I mean, I went to culinary school for a little while because I've done a little bit of everything. And, I mean, you use the bones of animals to make stock. Like, that's what stock is. You boil the bones and you use the flavor from that with different herbs to kind of bring out whatever flavors you're looking for, depending on what you're
My vegan
making.
friend told me, because I'm addicted to gelatin, he said, dude, you're eating animal bones. I can't have that. I'm like, what? He goes, gelatin's made with animal bones.
So is glue.
Collagen. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm not going to stop. I guess I'm not going vegan, because I told him I'm going to try going vegan. It's what you always say when someone goes on vegan. I was talking to him, it's got to be so tasking to even go to a restaurant and try and eat. He's like, oh yeah, I don't really eat out unless it's a certified vegan place. But if we go to like Applebee's, I just don't even really bother eating like even a salad, because sometimes it's cooked next to something. And then it's like, dang, it's like you're so restricted. But
I wonder if they stop using glue.
because of animal bones?
Uh-huh. I
Why
think
is
it's
that made
their-
from horses,
I think
too?
horse hooves, I think, is what glue is made out of. I'm pretty sure.
Well, we're still using like pig intestines for hot dogs, so.
Right, yeah. Let's not even get on the topic of Scrapple. Huh?
Do you like Scrapple?
I'm addicted.
I
It's
hate
like
it.
my favorite breakfast food.
I don't like
I moved to Florida, and I met some friends, and we were talking about like our favorite foods, and I was like, Scrapple's my favorite, and they're like, Scrabble, the board game, and I'm like, yes, because I eat words for breakfast. That's exactly
Hey,
what I
11
meant. You hit it on the nail.
You get
Hit
it,
the nail on the
11-word
head.
meal. Probably full all day.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, we don't realize that certain things that we eat, certain activities that we do are part of a culture based on where we grow up, kind of back to the whole nature versus nurture thing. There are people that will grow up on the Eastern Shore, and I can tell you what a dog food factory smells like. Someone in Florida might not have that capability.
Some people have never heard of Old Bay, and if you're from around here, you know what that is, because it's literally put on everything.
Do you know there's an Old Bay fish sandwich now?
There's Old Bay
because it's
chips.
amazing. Well, they've always been good. All right, I love crab chips.
I like crab chips.
They're pretty
They have
awesome.
biscuits and gravy now, too.
And chips?
Yeah, Lace. Lace has a magnitude of flavors. I think my favorite potato chip I think I've ever had was like a couple of years ago. It was probably the last time I actually consumed one. But it was like sour dill pickle. And I only ate it because he loves those too.
He is the pickle champion. You can give him a jar of dill pickles for his birthday, and he'll be completely content. Like that and peppers, hot peppers.
Yeah, me and him used to murder those things. I remember when you guys used to breed kittens, like when I first started hanging out with Matt, we put them all in a circle and then put them like piled up pillows around in like a ring, and we sat there in the middle eating chocolate chip cookie dough out of the jar, like out of the fridge, and we just sat there playing with the kittens for the longest amount of time.
And for the record, we did not breed kittens. We just had cats. We just had a lot of cats.
It seemed like that cat was always having babies.
Spunky was the one. Yeah, she was crazy. She never growled until she was pregnant, and she would like sit on the back of the couch, and if you came too close, she would just start growling. It's the weirdest sound in the world. You're like, what is that noise coming from a cat? Like, it sounded like just this feral, I don't know. It was terrifying. Or we used to have cats. So we had two cats. One of ours, I don't know if it was a brother and sister or one of our cats and a stray cat, but they would go under our house and start fighting, and we would just have to like stomp on the floor because I couldn't fit under there to like drag them out. and you don't want to go under a house that's that old. It's
Do you know the myth
scary.
that cats purr because they're happy? That's not true, because they purr for a magnitude of reasons and no one knows why. They purr from their mother when they're getting milk from her, and it's to
Right.
let her know that they're done or something like that. And it's like, it's just recognition for the mom. And then there's multiple, like, they just do it whenever. It's just whenever they really feel like it, much like whenever we breathe. We do it out of necessity, but we don't have like a set time, like I need to breathe now. It's like you breathe just naturally.
You just do
You
it.
just totally forget about it. But like dogs and all that have like certain things that they do. Like barking, it obviously means something. They need to go out or they need to do something. They don't just do it to do it.
Right.
Like cats, it's the weirdest thing in the world. And I got that out of a book from a thrift store. That and American conspiracies.
Conspiracies are interesting.
They're real.
They are. I've ever since getting into computers, I've done a lot of reading into the Anonymous hacktivist group. I'm sure you've heard of Anonymous.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've done a lot with taking down like ISIS Twitter accounts and Facebooks and social media stuff, and they've done a lot more than that. And I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on them, because I'm not. But I've looked a lot into different conspiracies involving technology. Different governments. I do a lot of reading.
You know the conspiracy Vault 7?
I do not.
I have a document about it I can send you. But I do a spin-off, let's just say this, of my podcast. This one's called Out of the Blank, which is just a conversation between me and you. I guess you can probably understand why the title is called Out of the Blank. We're pulling stuff out of nothing, so we're just talking. Fill in the blank is more narrowed down on specific topics. So like if you gave me one of your interests, like crochet or something, I would go and search up facts about crochet, everything. So when I get the podcast, I found that if you educate yourself and also the person who's listening, like if you're doing a podcast, they find themselves more interested or more educated about the idea, which might change their view on it.
Right.
I did the same thing. I always kind of mention him on the podcast. His name's General Butt Naked, and where you say like we're influenced by our environment. He was a guy that used to fight bare naked. He was an African warlord in Liberia. He would eat children and do all this stuff like consume their hearts, and then he would kill like teenagers and do all this stuff. But he fought naked, and he believed that he was he was invincible when he was fighting naked, and you would think you want the most layers on you when you're running into battle and stuff. But
right.
His whole influence was from his environment. Like he would go in the water and watch the kids come to get water and play in the water, and he would grab them and drag them underwater and kill them that way. Now, where you say, "Holy crap, you're giving me a lot of information right now." Well, what do alligators do to deer down there or antelopes down there? They grab them,
Right.
bring them underwater, and where we see that as just animals, that's what their whole culture was. It's really hard when we understand the concept of morality and like what's moral, what's the process of right or wrong. That's all divided by us. That's all where we're from, the way we've kind of been influenced in our society to believe what's right or wrong. Obviously, Christian, you want to be good and do all this stuff to please God and everything. But the whole idea of religion is we're always looking for something that has more power than us.
Right.
Because it feels like we need that block. We need that to know that there's something out there that can easily is more powerful than we are, and we need that. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's much like where we wish we were superheroes, where we are more. We just create this deity or this form. It's where conspiracies or legends like folklore come from.
Mm-hmm.
And that inspires me too, because the amount of creativity, like, when you see a monster movie or something, that's not, your brain cannot create a monster. It cannot do that. What it does is it takes face images and it takes other things from things you've seen that your brain has come across, whether it's like it or not, like whether you're just walking by somebody. Like you can't create a new face in your dream. That's just a bunch of different details taken from multiple people that you've seen, whether you remember them or not. And your brain has all that stored back there. It's like a vault. Well, to get back on the concept of Vault 7, where you talk about conspiracies. Conspiracies are stuff I believe that the government has done, like cover-up type deals, but they don't get released until after the person's dead.
Right.
So like 20 years later, you get the
find
information out. Yeah, like, oh, this was going on, like in much with the MK Ultra and stuff like that. Like, I don't know if you know that whole program.
Nope.
Your mom knows a lot about it, I guess, because it kind of happened around her time. But the whole aspect of, like, we were doing stuff with schizophrenia therapy, where we were treating people by sleep deprivation and all this type of stuff, and like psychic driving, which is like putting in headphones onto someone's ears and repeatedly looping a message. There was a person, and they would use that to like erase somebody's mind too. If you play a certain thing, it'll erase their memory a certain amount of time so they don't remember their experience they were in. There's people that have come out that have family members that had to relearn how to be potty trained because it erased too much information. And this is all like Canadian government and stuff like this dealing with the CIA here. The CIA has done a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah.
But like, Project Jedi? You ever heard the movie Men Who Stare at Goats?
Oh, yes, I do know about it.
That's a real thing too. That was a giant thing. And you're hearing
I
all this. I
researched that for a little while.
You're hearing all this and you're like, there's no way this is from a movie. It's like, yes, but at the same time, like, it's stuff that we've done. We've done a lot of crazy things that, in the name of science or in the name of chalk it up to war, like just an act of war. It's humans' power to go after something where I say creativity is beautiful and destructive. Now, where you talk about Anonymous, this group that does things that are right in some ways and wrong in some ways, depending on our moral view.
Right.
It goes down to Vault 7. Vault 7 is the CIA's ability to have, they had 24 different programs, and each one was stuff to hack your information. It's where everyone believed that your webcams were spying on you.
Right.
Well, the government had all their private information released from a contractor that worked for the CIA, and it all led up to WikiLeaks posting every 7 days or so these things called Vault 7, and they were all secret projects, all 1 through 24 that were released at different dates. And like there were stuff like Google Chrome tracking you and stuff the CIA was using to track your information, being able to monitor you. They had a thing called it was like the Kangaroo or Skyleap or something like that, where your computer could jump using a wireless network. It basically hacks the kernel system, which is like the mainframe and all that can control off everything else. They had so much secret stuff that you see like in Mission Impossible, and you're like, this is our government. Like, they're monitoring us. And like we always talk about, like, oh, they might be tapping your phones. That's a real thing.
Right.
This is where I say technology is scary, because it's just not a conspiracy where people say that's not real. It is real, but we're just finding out about it now. We don't know the whole facts on the JFK assassination, even though in 2017 the 200 last documents were released to us, to President Trump, and he kept 50 of them a secret. Why can't I see those 50?
Right.
It's like, are they protecting us? Do you see that? Or do you see them as them hiding information that might be valuable to us? Because I see it as, I can see it in both lights.
And there's a lot of kind of, with the whole censorship thing, I honestly believe that there are some things that it's not best for everyone to see. I mean, back in the First World War, or the First War where we had black and white television, like if you turned on the news, you didn't see news announcers talking about the war. You saw graphic images of dead bodies and the result of war, and those are things that children were sitting and watching with their families. Yes, we probably, became desensitized because we were exposed to things like that. And the same can be said now. We over-shelter our children, and we worry that, them playing a violent video game is going to create horrible things. But previous generations were seeing the results of war on their television, sitting at home in the living room with their family. And it's hard, because I'm always going to believe that there are certain things that maybe not everyone should know. Because if you do release all the information that you have, how are we going to have any tactics against other countries? Like my father is Army National Guard. He's been in the Army since I was 12 years old. Hopefully he's retiring soon, because he's been in a darn long time.
You said your dad?
Yeah.
I thought he was a truck driver.
No, he did. He was only with CRST for a little while. He went to trucking school, but he didn't want to be all over the country. And he's always worked for Value Carpet in Salisbury. He does bids on like really big commercial jobs, like at the Civic Center and the colleges and stuff like that. But they're about to be deployed again. They're heading to Kuwait. I can't know where they're actually going to be going, because that would be a liability. He can't tell me over the phone. There are some things that need to be kept secret for the safety of our nation,
Yeah, when you
for
get back
the
to
safety of
after
our
a battle
families.
or something, they have to give you a debriefing and everything.
Right.
To make
Yeah,
sure you're
I
not going to
mean,
expose any intelligence. This is what you can say. This is what you can't say.
right. And I mean, I feel like that's kind of important, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that, should be public knowledge. You know, I just found out in terms of technology being scary. So I'm researching penetration testing because ultimately that's what I want to do with my degree. I want to be an ethical hacker. I plan on getting an ethical hacking certificate. So it would be awesome when someone else
That
say,
goes
"Hey,
into
what do
my
you do?"
question
I'm
about-
an ethical hacker.
Yeah.
Like that just sounds beast.
That goes into my question. I was going to ask you about what's your passion, and that's good to know that that's what you're going for.
And that's my professional passion. I've always had to compartmentalize what I'm passionate about and what I'm enthusiastic about. I tend not to talk about my passions too much because a lot of people I talk to are jealous that I'm adept at many different things, but I'm honestly, when I talk about like what I love, it's from a humble perspective. Like I feel so blessed to be I'm a great baker. Like you should try my brownies. I know you're on a health kick.
I've had your brownies before.
You haven't had my new brownies.
Okay, I had the one. I remember one of my fondest memories of you was when you were baking a cake. This is around the time you were dating Andy, and you were having like a special dinner date or something. And I remember Justin took something of yours that was chocolate, and he started running up the stairs, and you put him in a rear naked choke on the steps, and you said, "Boy, give me my whatever ice cream it was, chocolate."
I think it was like a chocolate covered ice cream bar. I was like, "You never take chocolate from a woman."
I'll never forget that. I've never ever. Me and Matt, I don't think have ever laughed so hard in my entire life. And I was talking to your mom about this when I was just walking up the steps to your house. Like, it is nostalgia lane. I remember from when I first met you, like sitting on the curb when me and Matt were skating, just waiting outside. Like you had like the beanie on, and you had like this like gothic chick kind of vibe to you. And then knowing you from like cutting your hair all the different times and like all this stuff, like I grew up with you guys. Like you guys have literally seen me bare ass naked. I mean, I was a little I was over, like I think I lived there for I was talking to your mom about it. I've lived there like basically the whole summer one time, to the point where your dad bought me a toothbrush. Was like, all right, I need to teach you how our shower works.
Right.
And like it was just like, because when you're at that age, it's like you just your dad comes by or mom comes by, drops you off clothes and drops you off $20, and next thing you know, you're getting hot fries and all this other stuff down at the downtown movie town rental or whatever. And it's like,
oh, Downtown Video.
Yeah.
They had ketchup chips. They can't find those anywhere anymore.
Ketchup chips?
Yes, it's like potato chips, but with like a ketchup powder. Like to this day, like I will get regular potato chips and dip them in ketchup. But
Are you a nasty person that puts ketchup on their eggs?
No, I don't do ketchup
My
in eggs.
dad does that.
When
It's a Baltimore thing.
When I was little, I put ketchup in mac and cheese, and I would only eat broccoli if I had cheese and ketchup. I'm more of like a barbecue sauce fanatic. Like I put it on my tenderloin before I put it in the oven. I put it on hot dogs. I put it on burgers. I put it on barbecue chicken quesadillas. Barbecue anything is good in my book.
As long as you don't put ranch on your pizza, you're okay. You put ranch on your pizza? Matt does that.
If I get like I don't put it like in my pizza, but I'll like dip my pizza in ranch. Like a chicken bacon ranch pizza. Oh, come on. You need to expand your horizons. Have you ever had a good like Mongolian beef?
I had Haitian food from an authentic Haitian woman that owned her own restaurant.
Did you have oxtail?
I had goat's neck.
Okay. I've never had goat's neck, but I've had really
good
oxtail.
She doesn't speak very good English. She works at the hotel that I work at. And she didn't speak very good English. She didn't tell me there was a bone in all the goat's neck.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I bit into
I'm
that
so
sucker.
Sorry.
And I was like, and I felt like my teeth, like I felt like I just bit into a jawbreaker. I was like, okay, well, I almost just died. But it's so delicious. It's like, I'm glad I could expand my horizons. She always tells me every Saturday if I'm working Sunday, because that's our busy day.
Right.
She goes, I cook for you. I cook for your whole family. I'm like, don't feed my family, feed me. Like, she cooks rice and stuff. I don't normally eat that stuff, but she does like a black bean sauce, and it's like, I'm fascinated by stuff that someone's interested in. or you say you're interested in crocheting, baking, and stuff. You're that skill on like Mario, where it's like or like basketball or something that says all around. You're not just balance. You're not just power. You're not just speed. You're everything. You're all
Right.
wrapped into one. And that's like the best thing you can be really in life. If you can really take the time, like my grandmama, always has done this. Takes a potato chip, eats one at a time. I can't do that. As much as I want to slow down that much,
Just shove them in
yeah,
there.
it's like it's like I see it as a thing I have to do to get like done the process, and then once I'm done, I can go experience what I want to experience. But taking the time to really enjoy like the sway of trees or the sound of paper crinkling is very difficult to do in our everyday history, where you talk about society is like constantly on autopilot and stuff like that. Like we're all wearing disguises, we're all disguising who we truly are, and I believe that that's the one thing you have to be. I try my best to be very, very polite when I go to stores now. I try and I tell people to have a good day, because you don't know if that can change their life. You don't know if that can change things. I see so many kids now, like it was Christmas Eve, I went to a Christmas Eve party, and there was a bunch of adults that I found myself more connected to playing ping pong, playing actual like game of like while they were drinking, like having fun, and then a bunch of kids like 12, my little cousin's age, all playing Fortnite on the couch, addicted to this television. And then I remember the one thing that this guy did there that my dad used to do to me, walk in front of the television, am I in the way, 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 like joking like that, like it's funny to see that now, because now I see where I was a kid, so like my mind was so occupied with, see, television's gonna rot your brain, like it's true. And it's like, if I'm jealous of the kids that obviously it's hard, but working on farms and stuff, that get to actually experience that. But they're doing like not just doing work, but they're outside and enjoying the moments that aren't going to be here forever. Not every day is the same. There's always slight differences. Not every moment in your life, every day where it might feel like it's the same exact as the day before that, just constantly the days just keep adding up. You're missing the important aspects of life. There's something important event that might have happened. There's something that you're just missing, especially when you're looking down on your phone all day. You got to take a time to disconnect. You got to take a time. I mean, technology is amazing. It helps us have literally information at our fingertips. I can look up anything. If there's a problem, my car breaks down, I can look up something to figure out how to fix it. And, I can look up certain deals, certain sales, certain whatever. Whatever I'm interested in is there at my fingertips. That is an infinitely amazing resource. But the whole aspect is sometimes we do need to unplug. You got to know, it's much like you can take anything where stuff gets addicting. Like food, you can take anything over the edge. If you do something too much or do it unhealthily, it can kill you. It literally can. Drinking too much water can kill you. Drinking, anything you do can kill you if you do too much of it. You have to learn to do things in a respectable and meaningful manner. And it's really hard, like at my age, like 21, I don't drink or anything, but it's like the whole aspect of being able to conceptualize that in my mind and being able to understand what that means and fully actually try and implement it is very difficult for anybody. But knowing this at my age, I feel like I've been hit with the gifted wisdom stick, like it, like a shaman came up to me and slapped me on the back of the head, like...
Well, there's a medical part behind it. Until you reach about 21, 22 years old, the part of your brain that connects an action with a consequence isn't fully developed.
It doesn't develop until you're 25.
It doesn't. So there you go. You know the number better than I do.
I told you, I'm kind of... I'm a little bit intellectual when it comes to things.
You are, and it's interesting because, I feel like, especially now being a parent, my son is 2. He is incredible. I don't even know. He's all over the place. I mean, my mom's boyfriend asked, he's thought, if he's autistic, if he has ADHD, because he we'll take him to a park and he'll just spend probably 10 minutes just running from one thing to another, not touching anything, not climbing anything, not going down slides, but there's just so much information. And we forget that their brain is literally a sponge.
That's what upsets me is when people are so like willing to look at the bad things about something when a child's just... How do you, like, the way we people like try and diagnose their kids, and you're like, the kid's 6 years old and he's taking ADHD medication. How do you know he has that, or he's not just being a child?
It's not okay. And I'll tell you, I had this past year was the hardest year of my life. I will tell you a little bit about it before we wrap things up. I think we've been an hour so far. So this past year, my son's 2 now. when he was 18 months old, I believe. No, 14 months. It was February 28th. Last year he started walking. That's the day he started walking. That same day, him and his father and we split. His father's been in Florida since February, hasn't seen him in person since February a year ago. So that was really the biggest part about me kind of losing my identity and having to figure out who I am again, because I feel like a lot of times in a relationship you lose a part of yourself and you don't realize that. You fall into this routine of what you need to do to make your partner happy, and you kind of forget about
in there, and then you feel like you have to reset. It's the same thing you can
Exactly.
conceptualize with teachers that teach students.
Right.
That whole band of kids goes on next year after they just learn everything. You got to teach a whole new group and get connected with a whole new group of people.
Yeah, and you kind of, I was in that relationship for 3 years. So during that course of time, you kind of forget who you are. And so after all that happened, and I was recovering, my son had, in the course of 30 days, we were in the ICU twice. He had complete respiratory failure. He had retraction where when he would breathe in, you could see his belly button like pulling back to his spine. Like he could not get air into his lungs. And anyone under the age of 2, typically asthma is not a word that the doctor is going to say. They'll say, oh, it's an upper respiratory infection. It's a lower respiratory infection. But we were there twice. Like the second time he was intubated, he was completely unconscious for at least 24 hours. They had to put him out to get him on the helicopter. And the scariest word in today's opiate world, he was on fentanyl. That's what they kept giving him to keep putting him out. And all I was thinking was like, isn't that what I hear about in the news? Isn't that what people are dying of? Like, what could happen? And my second time, we were at AGH, and I don't think I would ever take him there again, but they didn't have pediatric equipment. They didn't have pediatric intubation tubes. They had, I guess they were meant for teenagers or full-grown adults. So, I mean, they had trouble getting his air tube in. They called a chaplain, which is who they call when they don't know what's going to happen. His stats were crashing, and this really nice guy sat next to me for like 3 hours just in case I needed him or needed, a religious individual to assist me with what was going on. And it was hard. It was scary. In that time, we get up there a day later, I get a call, hey, you have gallstones, you got to get your gallbladder taken out. The day before we left, my boyfriend got jumped at a gas station, and before we actually came home, we were staying at the Ronald McDonald House, and it was just like one thing after another. And I'm in school now for computer and network security at Wilmington University. It's completely online, which completely fits with my life of being a mother. And I came upon this gem of a book. This class, it's called First Year Experience. It's like freshman seminar. As soon as I saw the title, I was like, this is going to be ridiculous. They want me to learn how to research and write papers. I can do this. I know this. So already I was like not looking forward to this class. They assigned this textbook called The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. And this book is absolutely incredible. Like, I've teared up so much while reading it. It's about this professor who gets invited to give a last lecture, which is usually the last lecture you'll give before you retire and get your tenure or whatever it is from your university. But he was recently diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he has 3 kids. He has a wife. The youngest kid, I think, is like 1 or 2. And to him, he really, took a look at everything in his life and wanted to figure out what to write his lecture about. And he said, you know what, I know exactly what it is. I'm going to write it about childhood dreams and how important our dreams as a child are in helping us achieve everything that we want to through life. Sure, you might never be an astronaut. You might never get a chance to work for Disney if that was your dream, or to work on a cruise ship or whatever it is you want to do. But the journey that you have through life and attempting to get as close to those dreams as possible give you your greatest lifetime achievements. I may not actually use my computer and network degree. I might end up working, I'm already working for my mother here, but I might also manage her bed and breakfast. And by then, I might be so comfortable and happy with where I am that I might not want to pursue something outside of it. But, I'm still going to go for my goals because there's no reason not to. We have to have something that we're working towards. I want my son to be able to see what I've done with my life, and I have done a lot already. I'm almost 30, but I want him to be able to see that I pursued my music passion by street performing in California and Florida and Ocean City on the boardwalk. I've done that there. I've started writing a novel. I'm using my,
What's your novel called?
It doesn't have a name. It has a couple of chapters. It's about this girl in like medieval times who keeps having visions of a man,
Got me
and
hooked
they're like
already,
cross.
medieval times.
Yeah, they're cross-star lovers. They've run into each other in every life, but their connection has never been as strong as it is in the current life that they're living. They can hear each other's thoughts. Like when she touches him, she sees like his thoughts run across his skin. Like there's a lot of magic and a lot of literature, which I'm very excited about. She's a book enthusiast. My main character's name is Rosalind, which has always been one of my favorite names. And I don't think he has a name yet. I'm still working on it.
So like a Romeo and Juliet of a transcendent time, kind of.
Definitely. I'm going to find ways to incorporate pagan religions as well as Christianity.
I'll read it when it's finished.
Definitely. You can be my first rough draft reader. I think it's really important to incorporate different religions because we don't realize that aside from, if we weren't to have a government, we would go into anarchy. The same goes for religion and religious ideologies.
We need to understand there's a facet of more than one religion. We like to think of the big Christianity and then like the minor ones as being minor. It's like they're not minor, they're just as important as the other one in someone else's eyes.
Well, and if you think about it, there are multiple religions that say if you don't believe their religion, then you're going to hell. If that's true, then none of our religions are valid. So the opposite has to be true. We all believe in some kind of deity. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't know.
I have two religions,
but
actually.
See, there you go.
I'm religious in Pastafarianism, where we worship the giant spaghetti monster.
Okay.
And then I did a podcast on that. It highlights the whole factor of teaching. It was made on the fact that teaching education, like religious with education, is ridiculous, and we shouldn't incorporate that into educational systems.
Right.
We should focus on history and stuff like that rather than trying to perceived towards a more specific religion. Highlights the ridiculous factor in it, which I believe is a good thing.
Right.
And the whole aspect, I also follow Dudeism because my favorite movie is The Big Lebowski.
Okay.
And the dude inspired a whole cultist religion. So they also have a religion that follows a giant pink unicorn.
They sound really interesting. I'm probably more a combination of paganism, specifically Wicca, and Christianity. I was raised Presbyterian. My family's always been, we went to church on holidays. We did Sunday school. I was confirmed at the age of 12. I have my Bible that they gave me. But I've always had a lot of questions, and I believe as an intellectual, you are not doing yourself or whatever you believe in a justice unless you do question it. We're human, and if we are made by a God in that God's image, then obviously we're meant to follow the ideological question and scholarly paths that we do. You can't blindly believe in something because if you do, what purpose is it really serving?
Well, you never truly believe something unless you've experienced it or seen it yourself. You can have a belief or have a faith, but you won't truly know if it's real or not unless you've experienced it yourself. Someone can tell you, I've been to heaven, I've seen God, but you're never going to truly believe him unless, deep in your heart, as much as you want to trick your brain into thinking, you're never going to truly believe it unless you've experienced it yourself. And it comes to the whole concept, like, I'm guessing you're not a person of the church with euthanasia. You know what that is? It's a cult religion that believes you should save God by killing yourself, so save the earth by killing yourself. It's in LA. It's a ridiculous cult. It's 600 people. But in 1959, we had the same exact thing where we talk about people being too sensitive. That's not people being too sensitive, because we've always had these types of things happen throughout history. We've had the same stuff. It just seems like it's repeating itself.
Right.
But it's much more in modern times, and it's more modernistic way of doing it. Like back then, it was called Heaven's Gate. These people believed in an alien cult, and they all killed themselves in a giant thing.
That.
Yeah. Well, it feels like every mistake we're making in history is just getting repeated over again, much like technology, where our phone is going from where it went super big to super small to getting super big again. So now I can't even bring it into the store with me because it doesn't fit in my jean pocket anymore. But like the whole aspect of we're repeating history, and it's always going to be on repeat, but there's always going to be new technology, new things that are coming out, new things that are advancing that are going to modernize the problem into our asset of life, to be able to expand it more to knowledge is out known. I'm searching up things that we're dealing with now that's happened in history in the past.
Right.
Mistakes we've made that we're making again, and we're going to keep making because we're not open to all things, all aspects of everyone's history. We're worried about our present ones, what's happened in our area. What about stuff that's happened that they've done over there where obviously it doesn't work and we're going to try that here now? where technology and the news focuses on just highlighting major bad things happening in articles like black on white crime, which gets the views and gets all the popular people,
It does.
grabs the attention. We don't worry about the important stuff, like the famous, historians of our past, the people that have really paved the road for this country, and also, we're tearing it right back up and then repaving it. We're constantly tearing it back up and repaving it. It's much I say we're doing little minor infractions throughout our day by constantly worrying about things. We need to focus on not creating these fractions, but learning how to focus on healing them and not making the same ones over again. Because it seems like we're just literally picking off a scab and we just won't let it heal. We just constantly keep picking. We need to stop. And it's really hard to focus that. That's why when I hear and see someone like you, and you ask me these questions like, why would I be good for your podcast? Because I'm not a very good interview. It's not an interview. You're talking to me. If you want to ask me something about my life, I'm more than happy to tell you about it. I like being real. I've had so many people come onto my podcast where they've had emotional problems or whether they've had stress, and whether you want to talk on the podcast about it or not, I'm more than happy to talk to you and give you my answer. But I can't give you the keys to your car to drive. I can't do that. I can temporarily grab the wheel and point you in the right direction, but you don't want that. You want to be able to take the steps on your own. You need to go out and experience the world by yourself. You need to be able to do things on your own, but you don't push down a helping hand, but don't take their hand and let it drive your car. Don't do it.
Right.
It's not, because that one day they could just say something wrong that jerks the wheel, and next thing you know, you're crashing into a tree. And you got to be able to make sure that if you're going to make a mistake, it's your mistake. And if there's mistakes that get pushed in front of you, know that you can get past them. Work on what's going to pass them. Don't worry about the thing that's going to come down the road. Even though you should always plan 10 steps ahead, sometimes it's best to live in the moment and experience what's truly happening around us. And as a society, we have seemed to lost that aspect of life. And it fascinates me that I can think this way. I feel like from where my brain was going before, where I was just thinking of dumb things and constantly like little childish things that like didn't want to pique my curiosity at all. And then now it feels like I hit this age, like once I turned this certain age, like I just got hit by a car, and the next thing you know, my whole life changed. Like the Sam Kinison story, he wasn't this crazy screaming comic and everything until he was hit by a car at a young age, and his brother said that's when his personality changed for the rest of his life. And like Roseanne was like that too. And it's ridiculous to think that like a metaphorical car hit me, and then my mind just totally shifted in a whole new perspective where I feel like I'm looking at the world through a clear view. Like someone gave me a Nasonex for my eyes, or Clearasil,
I do. I think ultimately you grew up and you're kind of moving into this more intellectual mindset that allows you to, observe people and events in a different light, not just how it's individually affecting you, but how it's affecting us as a society. And I think you're the better for it.
Well, I appreciate that. I definitely think you're a benefit to society too. It was funny, your mom told me, she's like, it's crazy to see how smart that I always knew you were, that you really kind of formed into it. I was like, you thought I was smart? What about the Like, I still crack fart jokes, but back in the day it was like ridiculous, like constantly getting F's. But I didn't really take school seriously until I got into college. Like, I'm finishing up my last semester, I'm going to get my associates. I managed to take such a heavy workload in school, I can get my 4 years done in 2.
Right.
And then, like, I don't know if I want to transfer to Salisbury or if I want to stay and get my chemical dependency certificate and volunteer and start getting a job under counseling. Because I feel like the part that makes me a good talker is not just being empathetic, being able to read people for my podcast and knowing what they're interested in, but also being able to be real with someone. Like I was talking to your mom about before, it's hard to find a therapist that is real with you and is not just there to hear what you want, what you're there to say and then tell you what you want to hear.
Right.
Like, it's hard to give like real advice. Like she's one of the people I respect highly when it comes to that, because she will tell you how it is. She will tell you how she thinks and how you should deal with it. And if you don't want to do it, she's more than happy to find you someone that is better suited for it. And she does it in such a polite way too. I know I gave her a bad like jerk of a description, but that's the real thing about her. She is real, and she's always been that way with me. She's always shot straight. She's never yelled that I've seen.
She's not a yeller.
And she's not.
She's a taker.
Yeah.
She takes things.
And she just like, slowly, your keys are missing, and then down the toilet.
Or your door.
I remember
She
that. You
took
didn't have
my
a door
door.
for a long
She
time.
took my door. Best
Hey,
punishment I've ever had.
She, you know, she's legit.
I'm stockpiling that. So for one day when Gabriel starts to act up like the rebellious teenager I was.
See, I just thought you had a curtain on your, or a shower curtain thing on your door and beads and all that because you were like some like kind of like hippie chick or something. But next thing I know, you got in trouble because you got your door taken away.
Yep, no door. That's a story for a different day.
But it's just, I appreciate you taking the time because I think like it's not hard to either find an hour or two just to be able to kind of talk with someone, which we don't really take the time to do. And I know it is inconvenient, and I really appreciate you being on the podcast. And I'll have to get you on again, you know, when we have like a full day for it, because I feel like we could just ramble on for hours.
We definitely could. I feel like there's so much stuff I wanted to talk about, but I'm not even sure I hit like half of it.
I still want, I mean, if you got anything you want to ask, you can.
It's not that I necessarily have questions, but I think we should definitely try to make another time for it. Maybe I can get like an excerpt of what I've written together to give to you, so you can tell me what you think.
I really want to actually read that because you literally piqued my curiosity with that. I think the one book I always picked in school were like the religious stories, but like the ones that are designed like comic books. Right. So like I want to go back to that school and just take those books. I hope they don't mind because I can't find them anywhere. It was like cartoonish of like the Mayans and stuff and how like, you know, they killed the winner. Like of the ball game, the soccer game they played. They killed the winner and they would eat the warrior because they believed like the winner was like you would consume his flesh and
they want his power.
Yes, isn't that nuts? So I'm like,
they eat him to become him.
One of my favorite comedians, Joe Rogan, had an old bit about it. He was talking about like that must have been the longest soccer game ever because no one wanted to be killed. But it was like you saw that as a great honor, and that's where we talk about cultural differences. But it was like the book was written like a comic book, like the drawings. That fascinates me. My bodybuilding manager at my gym, his name's Chuck, he was on my podcast. He told me his whole inspiration into getting into bodybuilding was he used to draw superheroes all the time, and he was obsessed with how their bodies were like this super muscular figure, and that got him into gym. Like you would think, people's brains making these connections and then finding their passion around the way. I'm so glad that I found a passion like this, and it's one that is endless. But it is difficult to set up because it's like you have to get someone and then schedule it around them, and a lot of times it's like I got something coming up or they bail out last minute. Like I had the whole day scheduled. It's like we got to do this if we're going to do this. But you know, I appreciate you, like I said, taking the time to be on the podcast, Lauren, and we'll definitely have to get you on again soon.
I'm down.